Caseus. Ashes of the Order. Chapter 6. Master and apprentice rejoined with Saturi and the others. Kresh made a few final adjustments to his buster cannon before slinging it over his back. Tosa stood nearby, rifle in hand and a bag of explosives around his waist. We all ready?
Yes. Follow us and keep close. Felucia is a dangerous place.
We can take care of ourselves. Just be sure you let us know if things get too dicey.
Understood. Let's move.
Caseus and Liara followed the crew of the Arabella in silence as they moved through the dense jungle. As they moved, Saturi kept her eye on a small device with a glowing red screen, tapping it a few times as it flickered on and off.
What's that? A thermal energy sensor. It's scanning a few miles ahead of us. This way, if there's anyone ahead, we'll see them before they see us. Seems to be a bit buggy at the moment.
That would have been useful with those sand burrowers.
Ah, yes. Nearly getting devoured by giant worms. Good times.
Caseus smirked a bit as they came upon a large patch of green bulbous fungi between two very large rocks.
Gross! What are those?
Not too close, little lady. One little nudge and these things will pop and release toxic fumes. Well, toxic to you, maybe.
Single file. Follow me and don't step on them.
Carefully, the crew huddled together in single file and followed Saturi as they inched around the plants. As they did, Saturi fidgeted with her scanner.
Piece of junk, come on.
Nice equipment, Saturi. Works like a charm.
Be quiet, Tosa. Don't your kind see in infrared? Maybe you should be the lookout.
No thanks. This planet is teeming with life. Too much overstimulation is bad for the brain, you know.
Saturi rolled her eyes and continued to adjust her scanner.
Caseus, this place is kind of creepy at night.
We'll be all right, Liara. We just have to stick together. Saturi smacked her device one more time.
Ah, finally. Now we...
What? Saturi's face went pale.
Everyone, slowly move back.
What's wrong? On either side of them, the rocks slowly began to move, as Caseus felt a lump form in his chest. These weren't rocks. They were staring into the faces of two sleeping Rancors on either side of them.
Master?
Caseus covered Liara's mouth as the team slowly started tracing their steps backwards. They had nearly cleared the grove of poisonous fungi when a loud voice pierced the silence.
Hey, Captain, wait up! You forgot me!
The eyes of the Rancors opened as they spotted the crew.
Uh-oh.
Run! Caseus grabbed Pip by his leg and ran with Liara and the others as the Rancors stood and roared, marching towards them. Pip, you have got the biggest mouth!
My bad!
Kresh turned back and aimed his buster cannon and fired at the closest Rancor, who recoiled from the blast before roaring and continuing to charge.
Keep running, you idiot!
Kresh hightailed it back to the others. The Rancor, struggling to keep up on foot, began to pick up large rocks and dead trees and hurl them towards the crew. Caseus turned and saw one of the boulders hurtling straight for him. Liara! Liara turned and helped her master catch the enormous rock with the force and send it flying back, hitting the Rancor in the face and stunning it.
Caseus, there's a bridge, come on!
Caseus grabbed Pip and ran with Liara and the others until they reached an enormous stone bridge over a large chasm. Get across the bridge. Go. Liara and I will hold them back.
You're insane.
Go! Saturi ran with Pip and the others over the bridge as Caseus and Liara activated their lightsabers.
What's the plan?
Try not to get eaten. The two Rancors lumbered forwards as Caseus and Liara readied themselves to fight. The first Rancor slammed its enormous claws into the ground, knocking the two of them back, before reaching for Liara, who swung her lightsaber, cutting through one of its fingers. As it screeched a fierce roar, Caseus looked back at the bridge. They had nearly made it across.
Master!
Caseus looked back to the Rancors as one swung its hand and knocked him off his feet and towards the ledge of the chasm, where he grabbed a tree root and held on. Before Liara could help him, one of the beasts was right on top of her, reaching down to grab her as she rolled underneath its legs and sliced away at its ankle, causing it to stumble and drop to the ground. Caseus had just hoisted himself up when the second Rancor grabbed Liara in its clutches and lifted her in the air above its mouth. Caseus ran towards the creature, leaping in the air, saber raised high above his head, and brought it down, slicing the wrist of the creature and cutting its hand clean off, and leaving Liara to tumble painfully to the dirt as she freed herself from the dead clutch of the Rancor's hand. Both Rancors stood back up as Caseus helped Liara to her feet. Looking back, he saw the others had just cleared the bridge. "Go! Run! I'll be right behind you!"
Master!
"Go!" Caseus pushed Liara, sending her running across the bridge as fast as she could. Caseus looked around as the Rancors surrounded him. Closing his eyes, he reached down deep and sent a force push at the ground, sending a massive cloud of dirt and dust into the air, obscuring him from view. As the Rancors reached out blindly, trying to grab him, Caseus fumbled in the dirt until he had reached the bridge and started to run across. Liara reached the others, and from the cloud of dust, they saw Caseus run across, with the two Rancors following close behind.
He's leading them right to us.
Caseus reached the halfway point of the bridge as Liara ran over to him. "Liara!" Bendel tried to go with her, but was held back by Zaturi. Liara caught up to Caseus as the Rancors were fumbling their way closer and closer.
I'm open to suggestions.
Caseus looked at the stone bridge and noticed a weak spot where the rocky formation had begun to crack and erode. And he remembered what he and Sarah did back at the Battle of Coruscant. "Start cutting through the rock! Hurry!" The master and his apprentice violently began to slice downward until they created a healthy gap in the structure. The Rancors were now only 20 feet away. "Run! Hurry!" Liara ran with her master as fast as she could, just as the Rancors stepped on the weakened spot of the bridge, which rumbled and cracked beneath them, before collapsing, sending one falling into the deep chasm, as the other tried grabbing onto the remaining part of the bridge before it too collapsed and fell. Caseus and Liara both felt the bridge begin to fall beneath their feet. "Jump!" Just as the bridge gave way, the two Jedi leapt up into the air. Liara landed safely across, but Caseus was not so lucky, as he missed the edge by inches and fell.
No!
From the chasm below, the loud crashing of the bridge and the Rancors echoed into the night sky. Liara fell to her knees, as the others rushed over, seeing that Caseus hadn't made it.
Master! No! No!
Hey! Liara opened her eyes at the sound and looked over the cliff ledge, seeing Caseus hanging onto a rock.
Caseus!
Tosa grabbed a rope from his bag and threw it down to the Jedi, who grabbed onto it and hoisted himself up, before collapsing in front of Liara, who hugged him tightly. Caseus sighed and returned the hug.
Don't scare me like that again.
I'm all right. Zaturi looked at the map on her holoprojector.
That little detour took us off course. It'll be hours before we get there now. Let's move.
No. Let's wait here for a little while. If the Empire heard that racket, they'll send out scouts to investigate. We should lay low until we're sure we're okay to head out. Zaturi sighed and sat down onto the dirt.
Fine. We wait.
Kresh opened his bag and removed a med pack, going over to Caseus and Liara and patching up their cuts and bruises.
Captain, am I fired?
Caseus looked at Pip and shook his head. Next time, stick with the group, oil stain.
Gotcha. Mental note, all stored away.
Zaturi looked around at the trees covering their heads and turned to her crew.
2 hours. If you need to rest, rest now.
A few of the team found soft patches of ground to close their eyes for a bit, as Caseus sat on the ledge of the chasm, looking at the sky.
That was brave. Stupid, but brave.
Caseus smiled as Zaturi sat next to him. Those two traits aren't mutually exclusive. The two friends sat in silence for a moment.
Do you remember back on Blenchiel when we met?
Yeah, why?
You've changed a lot since then. You seem less angry.
A lot has happened over the years. My anger got me into a lot of trouble. Guess I've just learned to mellow out a bit. Especially now that I have someone to look after. Zaturi looked back at Bendel, sleeping a few feet away from Liara, who was fidgeting with her little blue cube that Caseus had given her as a child.
I know the feeling. Caseus, You and I aren't very different, are we? We've both been through a lot. But we both have something that keeps us going. For me, it's Bendel and the others. For you, that girl.
What are you getting at?
I don't know. Maybe if things had played out differently, there might have been something between us.
Cassius' face turned red a bit as he looked at Zaturi. Maybe. Maybe not. Everything happens for a reason though, right? All we can do is work to change our futures for the better.
I agree.
As they sat, Zaturi slowly put her hand onto Cassius' hand. He looked down and back to the night sky. Things wouldn't work out with he and Zaturi. They lived two lives that could only ever intersect, never join. Still, he didn't mind her company at times like this. He didn't mind at all.